The world will tell you that happiness is a destination, a shining city on a distant hill that you reach only after a long and arduous climb. But what if I told you that the map they gave you is wrong? What if true happiness isn't a place you arrive at, but a garden you grow along the way? This is the story of Leo, a man who had conquered every mountain the world told him to climb. By the age of 30, his name was a whisper of respect in the glass towers of the city. He lived in a penthouse that scraped the clouds, its windows looking down on the world like the eyes of a god. Awards, gleaming in gold, lined his shelves, and his bank account held a number most people only dream of. He had everything, and yet, every morning, he would wake to a profound and hollow silence, an echo in the vast chambers of his own heart. Success felt like a beautiful, empty room. He had followed the map perfectly, yet the shining city was a mirage. Consumed by this quiet desperation, he did something no one in his world would understand. He left. He sought out a man named Silas, a recluse who lived a simple life in the remote foothills. A man who was said to possess not wealth, but wisdom. After a long journey from the steel and concrete jungle to the quiet embrace of nature, Leo found Silas sitting outside a small, weathered cottage. He wasn't a grand sage, just an old man with eyes that held the deep, calm light of a twilight sky and hands that looked like they were carved from the earth itself. Leo, in his expensive tailored clothes, felt strangely out of place. He poured out his story, the tale of his triumphs, and the gnawing emptiness that followed each one. He spoke of the promotions, the acquisitions, the accolades, and the profound sense of being a spectator in his own celebrated life. When he finished, he expected a lecture, a complex philosophical text, or a series of profound questions. Instead, Silas simply smiled a gentle, knowing smile. He stood up, his joints creaking softly like old wood, and led Leo to the back of the cottage. There stood a deep, stone-lined well, and next to it, an old wooden bucket. "Your answer is in this task," Silas said, his voice as soft as the rustling leaves. "For 1 week, I want you to take this bucket, draw water from the river down the path, and pour it into this well. Your goal is to fill the well." Leo looked at the bucket. It was old, its wooden staves grayed with age, and running down one side was a long, unmissable crack. He then peered into the well. It was dark and seemed impossibly deep. The task was absurd, a fool's errand. How could he possibly fill a deep well with a bucket that leaked? It was a deliberate, calculated exercise in failure. A part of him, the sharp, efficient businessman, wanted to scoff, to turn around and leave this strange old man to his games. But another part, the desperate, hollow part, was willing to try anything. And so, he agreed. The first day was maddening. Leo hauled the bucket to the river, filled it to the brim, and struggled back up the dusty, barren path. With every step, he could hear the steady trickle of water escaping through the crack, a sound that mocked his effort. By the time he reached the well, the bucket was less than half full. He poured the meager amount into the darkness, the splash echoing up like a hollow laugh. He did this for hours, his muscles screaming, his designer shirt stained with sweat and dirt. By sunset, the water level in the well hadn't seemed to rise at all. He felt a familiar rage, the frustration of inefficiency. This was a waste of his valuable time. The second and third days were a battle of wills. His mind raced with strategies to fix the bucket, to plug the leak, to make the process more productive. He was a problem solver, a titan of industry, yet he couldn't conquer a simple, cracked bucket. The futility of the task gnawed at him. He was achieving nothing. The well remained a dark, thirsty mouth, and his efforts felt like pouring sand into the wind. He was failing, and Leo was not a man who failed. The emptiness in his chest felt heavier than ever, now mixed with the bitter taste of humiliation. But on the fourth day something began to shift. Exhausted, his body aching in ways he'd never known, he gave up fighting the task. He surrendered to the rhythm of it. The walk to the river, the scoop of the bucket, the heavy pull in his arms, the steady, rhythmic drip-drip of the leaking water on the path. He stopped focusing on the well, on the impossible goal, and simply focused on the next step. For the first time in years, the ceaseless noise in his mind began to quiet. He started to notice things he had been blind to before, the way the morning sun filtered through the canopy of leaves, the sweet scent of pine in the air, the cheerful chirping of unseen birds. The physical labor grounded him, pulling him out of his head and into the present moment. By the sixth day, a strange sense of peace had settled over him. He knew the well would not be full. He accepted it. The journey up and down the path was no longer a chore, but a moving meditation. He felt the sun on his skin, the earth beneath his feet, and the steady beat of his own heart. The leaking water, once a source of intense frustration, now sounded almost musical, a quiet companion on his journey. He was still working hard, but the desperation was gone. On the morning of the seventh day, Leo made his final trip. He poured the last half bucket of water into the well and stood, not in defeat, but in quiet contemplation. He had failed the task. He walked back to the cottage where Silas was waiting, a warm cup of tea in his hands. "I have failed," Leo said, his voice clear and devoid of anger. "The well is not full. The bucket is broken." Silas nodded slowly, his kind eyes twinkling. "You are right. The well is not full," he said. "But before you judge your work, do me one favor. Walk back down the path to the river, but this time, I want you to truly look at it." Confused but obedient, Leo turned and started back down the path he had trod hundreds of times that week. And then he stopped, his breath catching in his throat. It was no longer a dusty, barren track. Along the exact line where he had walked, where the cracked bucket had dripped its steady tear track of water, a miracle had bloomed. A vibrant green ribbon of lush grass snaked its way down the hill, and nestled within the green were dozens of tiny wildflowers, vibrant purples, sunny yellows, and delicate blues, all turning their faces to the sun. Bees hummed, flitting from one blossom to the next. The path, once a symbol of his failure, had been transformed into a beautiful, living walkway. He stood there for a long time, stunned into silence. He walked back to Silas, his eyes wide with a dawning understanding. Silas met his gaze and smiled. "You were so focused on the destination, Leo, on the impossible task of filling the well, that you didn't see the beauty you were creating with every single step. You saw only a broken bucket, a flaw, a failure to hold water. You didn't see the life it was giving." He gestured towards the flowered path. "That bucket is you. It is all of us. We are all cracked in our own ways. We have flaws, imperfections, and weaknesses. We try so hard to achieve our goals, to fill our wells of success. And we get frustrated by our own shortcomings, by the efforts that seem to leak away and accomplish nothing. But the leaking water, Leo, that was your journey. That was your effort, your struggle, your persistence. And while it may not have filled the well, it brought life and beauty to a barren path. It watered a garden you didn't even know you were planting." In that moment, the hollow echo in Leo's chest was filled, not with the cold clang of another achievement, but with a warm, radiant understanding. True happiness wasn't the full well. It was the walkway of flowers. It wasn't about reaching a flawless destination, but about appreciating the beautiful, unintended consequences of our imperfect journey. Our cracks, our vulnerabilities, the efforts that seem to fall short, they are not signs of failure. They are the very channels through which we can water the world around us, often in ways we never intended. The cracked bucket, his weakness, had become a source of life. The leaking water, his perceived wasted effort, was a gift. Leo left the mountains a different man. He returned to his world of glass towers, but he no longer saw it as a series of mountains to conquer. He saw it as a world full of dusty paths, waiting to be walked. He learned that the true measure of a life is not in the wells we fill, but in the gardens we unintentionally grow for others along the way. So I ask you, as you walk your own path, what about your journey? Look down from the grand destination you are striving for, and see the ground beneath your feet. Acknowledge your own cracked bucket, not with shame, but with gratitude. For it is through our imperfections, through our persistent, leaking efforts, that we often create the most breathtaking beauty of all. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, please consider subscribing for more tales that heal and inspire.